Hey guys, Merry Christmas. It is Christmas Eve. Happy holidays. Happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever it is that you celebrate during this holiday season. So because this is a fun season to be in, so many things going on despite the pandemic, obviously it is Christmas. So I wanted to make this fun video of basically the top ways of how I make language learning more fun. So we're going to start with the fact that you should start with, what do you normally do? Okay, so what do you normally do? Like, what do you normally do every day? What do you normally talk about? What kinds of conversations do you have? Like, what kinds of conversations do you have with your friends? And just basically looking at that. That's where you should start. Because a lot of times I get people that say, oh, I want to learn a new language, but like, I don't know where to start. And a lot of times, and I hate textbook learning. I hate it because a lot of times they don't really teach you anything that's like really realistic with what people talk about. Like, it's so easy to learn, hello, how are you? What is your name? So on and so forth. That's good. You should learn, you should say hello to people, you should learn to be nice to people, but it's more complex than that. I think that when you learn to speak a new language, you should just start with, what do you normally talk about? If you're at a party or something like that, like as most people my age do, despite pre-pandemic, so to say, is like, how do you introduce yourself to your friend, to the friends you probably now have, but you met at some gathering or some public space, so to say. Like, hi, how's it going? What's your name? So and so. I'm friends with so and so. This is so and so's house. What do you do? Oh, I do this, and oh, that's so awesome. You have those basic conversations with people, learning how to do that. Because a lot of times I know people learn how to speak formally, they know how to, with French, people know how to say bonjour, comment allez-vous, or comment vous appelez, formal ways of saying things. But to be honest with you, that's gonna help you that probably will help you in professional settings, but if you are living in another country and you have friends, it'll make it a little bit difficult for you to understand what's going on right away, because people are going to speak, even in English. I am a native English speaker, but I don't speak in proper English all the time, especially around my friends. I'm going to use slang, I'm going to use really shortened dialogue, how people have abbreviations. I remember this guy I was seeing briefly, who I met in Paris at one point 2 years ago. I remember I learned MDR, which basically means mort de rire, which basically means it's their version of LOL, which means it means dead of laughter. I was like, oh, that's LOL. I was like, what is that? I was like, oh, that's what that means. And I was like, okay, cool. And then so just what do you normally do? How do you introduce people? How do you introduce yourself to people? How do you talk about whatever it is you're doing? A lot of times people talk about the events of their day. I always tell people that past tense is very important to learn, because when you're talking to people, you might be like, oh, hey, how's it going? It's like, oh, this thing happened to me, and I was talking to my mom, and blah, 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 we were talking about this, and oh, this happened, this guy in the subway, or this person said this to me. We're always talking about story. Storytelling is what we normally do. And then, so just start with that. And then music. I know this is kind of an obvious one, but I have to say it because it is true. Find what you like in another language. You don't have to listen to whatever music. It's even with French, I do actually enjoy Edith Piaf. Most people know some of her songs. La vie en rose, Mille fois, Je regrette rien. We know those songs, but find some recent ones, because that's going to help you learn informal dialogue, informal speech. One of my favorite French artists, I have so many. One of my favorite French artists, which I did a dissect a song for L'Ompal, which that came out last Saturday, so you should check that out. But basically, I love his writing, his music. I know that a lot of it came out, there's 2 albums that came out, one 2 years ago, which was Janine, and then another one that came out last year as a re-edition, Amina. I noticed from listening to him, I had a little bit of a hard time understanding, because in some of his songs he's singing, some of them he's rapping, so I'm like, okay, he's using very, very, like, some of the words that he was saying, I was like, I don't even know, because like it's very fast, and it's also a lot of it is slang, a lot of different things. I actually had to look up a lot of things so that I can actually, understand it. So yeah, because once you start hearing it, you're training your brain to recognize it a lot faster. So the more you're surrounding it with yourself. There's also lyrics training, where you can actually find songs that are current, and you can actually learn the lyrics to them. So what happens is that, like, you can do like karaoke version, where there's like a video, and then there's like the lyrics that are like scrolling up. But then like you can also do like there's like a game aspect to it. So you can choose which level: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and expert. Expert, which means you have to fill in the blank of all the lyrics. And I'm gonna tell you right now, that's challenging. I've done that. I've done it before. But basically, like, it's available on your phone as well as your computer. So I have that linked in the description. And then, so basically, like, you're gonna basically learn lyrics, and you're gonna fill in the blanks. You can do multiple choice if you're not comfortable writing them out yet, because it does move very, very quickly. So to say, depending on how fast the song is. And then you can also do like writing mode. So if you're like, I know how to write, I'm just trying to like learn to listen. You're like learning to listen and write what you hear, or choose the word that fits based on what you hear. Sometimes for me, I kind of cheat, because like I am like reading the lyrics as well. So a lot of times I understand the context. I'll see like, oh, I see what they're trying to say, and I'll write the word in. Sometimes I'm wrong, but I'm like, okay, I know what they're trying to say, and so I'll write it in before I hear it. So that's not learning to hear, that's just me reading between the lines. But you have to learn to listen and then recognize what the word is and write that out. So that's very, very helpful. It's very, very fun, because I always learn. So I always have like, every time I'm like looking for new songs to listen to in like another language, it always ends up like going to lyrics training. And like when I first started learning Portuguese, I was like, oh, I don't know any artists, so I'm just gonna go on lyrics training and like find some lyrics. And then I actually end up listening to them regularly in real life, and then that actually sometimes will move into me finding other artists that I like that are related to them, especially on Spotify. Because Spotify does like the daily mixes, and depending on what artist you like, they'll pop their songs in there, and then they'll also like put like in like other suggested artists. So it's very, very helpful. Yeah, use what you got. I'm telling you, I mean, we have Spotify, we have Pandora, we have Netflix, we have all these different ways that we entertain ourselves. Use it to your advantage as best as you can. Next thing I will say is changing the settings of your phone. This is so crucial. It's like, because we are in a pandemic era where we can't travel as much as we want to, this is a way to really immerse yourself, because you're able to recognize, like, and from like an international lens, what like their keyboards are like. Like on my phone, I actually download like keyboards for those different languages, so that I can see where the letters are placed. Even on my phone or on my computer, what I do is I have like 10 different keyboards downloaded. But basically, like, it helps me so that when I'm typing like in that language, I can actually have the accent marks and everything. Even like when you're looking at like Google, like your Google Drive or your Gmail, a lot of times you'll see like all the different settings. Like it doesn't change like all the content, so like you don't have to worry about like, oh, an email's gonna come in and like it's gonna translate that all. No, it doesn't. If someone sends you an email in English, you're gonna read it in English. It's just that the settings are all gonna be changed. So if you're trying to write a new email, you'll see like the plus, like, to add a new email, and then it'll say nouveau, like new message. So you'll see that. So that way it'll train you to start recognizing vocabulary a lot more. There's also a Google Chrome browser extension called Toucan, where what it does is that, like, when you add the extension, as you're reading things like on a day-to-day, like random words will pop up, and you can like drag your mouse over it, and it'll show you the definition. And then like if you see it enough times, you can click the check mark and be like, yeah, I got it. So it's basically, it'll just like little words will just pop up randomly, like as you're like reading things on the internet, or like it's very helpful because it's like random vocabulary lessons, so to say. And then, yeah, just basically just training your brain to get used to it. I have a student that I teach German to every week, and she was telling me that, I was telling her that some of the words that I teach her, I mean, I've just seen them. Like, I was telling her that I've seen, like, when my phone is in German, is that there's like a word that's like Nachrichten, like messages. So I learned that because I see it all the time on my phone. Even in like Spanish, there are certain words that I will learn because I see it all the time on my phone's language setting. So language settings is like a way for you to basically immerse yourself into your device, so to say, so that you can't travel. Because then my Google Assistant is always in that language, so it forces me, if I need to set an alarm, I have to say it in that language or things like that. So it does change that particular aspect. But it really helps because when you go to a foreign country, nothing is in English, other than like if they choose to write them down in English or something like that. But it's very, very effective. Yeah, so it's a way to kind of immerse yourself and train your brain to see it. And to be honest with you, with your phone, if you use it every day, I'm pretty sure you know what button is the text messages. Pretty sure you know what button to push. It's just that the messages, the name of the app underneath it is going to be labeled differently. So yeah, we know our phones like the back of our hands. And then also, one of the things I will say in the next tip is that writing is so important. Like learning to just use it or lose it. So like if you are writing like your to-do list or your notes or an outline, like anything that you know for a fact that no one else is gonna read but you, write that out. Like my to-do lists every day are always in French, it's always in German, it's always in Spanish, it's always in Italian. I actually have journals for like each one of my languages. So when I want to like practice my writing, I just go in there and I have it in there. And then what I'll do is I'll take a highlighter, anything I'm not sure of that's correct, I'll highlight it. And then at the end of the week or something like that, I'll go back in and cross-reference it. Something like that. Also, if you're a college student, this is also helpful because like, even though like I know that like with note taking, you're writing really fast. So it's like anything that's like off the top of your head, write that out. You don't have to write everything. You don't have to miss whatever notes you're writing, because you're trying to think about the word, but just like write things that like sentences, words, whatever, bullet points. Also, it's helpful because if you have like that one person that's like never in class and they're like, hey, you're always in class all the time. You never miss class. Can I like take a picture of your notes? Can I like, it's like, oh, well, no, you can't because they're in French or they're in Spanish. So unless you understand those languages or you have time to translate them all, then yeah, sure, and then it's kind of like if they don't know those languages and they'll say, oh, okay, never mind, it's like if you're really too nice to like tell people no, then just write it in another language, so that's helpful. Another thing is YouTube videos. We watch YouTube videos all the time. You're watching this YouTube video right now. It's an excellent tool, not to just like learn, like, because there are YouTubers where they actually sit down and teach you things, which is good. But just like, I'm really not a by the textbook learner because I just feel like that's not real. I mean, it is real in terms of like the standards of reading it and writing it and speaking it and hearing it. But like, to be honest with you, I think that learning is pointless if you don't have a way of applying it. Like, if I'm learning to talk about whatever I'm learning to talk about in a language, I want to be able to see it all the time. Like, for example, like I know that there are, plenty of YouTubers that do, around the world that just, do like vlogs, or they, talk about different things within a particular language. I know that there's also culture-based videos. YouTube is a really great tool to get educated on anything. I know that there's a YouTube channel called Dating Beyond Borders. So if you're living in another country and you are possibly dating someone outside of your nationality, so to say, then that actually is helpful. It's actually really entertaining because they create these, they're pretty much for entertainment purposes mainly, but like they'll do like a you're dating blank man or woman series. So it's like, my favorite video that they did was like the Italian man and the Portuguese man because they're so hilarious. Like, I watch it a lot because it's just funny. Like I said, it's for entertainment purposes. Then they have a series on that channel called Myth or Stereotype, which they like interview people who are from different cultures and they're like, this is a stereotype. What do you think about this? And you hear the direct perspective. Then they have this series I think is really interesting. It's called Sexiest Languages, where they have like these group of people, they blindfold them and they have all these different people speaking different languages like talk to them, and they explain like, and in some cases they'll like make them like guess what the language is, but then sometimes they'll do groups of languages. Like they did one where it was like Arabic dialects, so then they had like people blindfolded and they're like, which one did you like the most, so to say, and so they would just hear it and they're like, oh, I've not heard this one before, this is different, so to say. And then, so yeah, those are really great tools to get educated. There's all kinds of entertaining things on YouTube. Like I have so many different suggestions on our website, where it is, I have like random videos, like playlists and things that I think are really fun to watch. So you can check those out. Those are linked as well. Also finding friends who speak the languages natively. To be honest with you, it's very helpful when you have someone to speak with, and especially if you're building friendships. I know that there are people who will they're actually people who will get tutors to learn how to speak a language, which is great. But I think it's going to be more effective when you have a personal connection with someone. Like if you have, like one of my friends from Italy, she was my roommate at one point, but when I told her that I was learning Italian, or that was one of the languages that I was learning at the time, she said, oh, I'm Italian, like we'll learn about that. And I felt like I wanted to be a better friend to her because, that language thing. If you're friends with someone, like let's say you have I was inspired to learn German because a friend of mine at church told me that German was hard, and I was like, I'm gonna learn this. But however, I feel like I'm a better friend to him because, it's like every time I see him, I always like try to speak his language. I think that, when you have friends or when you meet people when you're out, you just have this way of just being like, hey, I want to talk to you. I want to, it's like, especially like if you're in a relationship with someone, like romantically, you want to, one of the people that I know, she's married to a German, I think. And she's like, I really want to learn German to impress my in-laws. So, to be honest with you, I think that makes you want to be to further develop that relationship because you're trying to learn the language. And a lot of times people will appreciate that because they're like, wow, like, especially like in some cases, like there are people who might be, living in America, there are people who may not be fully confident in their English. So it's like, hey, let me help you out. I'm learning this language. I feel like, you can just build so many relationships through language, and that's one of the beautiful things about, being multilingual. It's just having so many different people and different connections that I can, make that I wouldn't have made otherwise, and then there's also some different apps for you to find friends to speak with. I have that link below for my website. I have all of my favorite ones listed. Be very careful with apps like this, because sometimes, like even like on any app, like like Instagram or like a Hello Talk, for instance. Hello Talk is how I met my friend from Belgium, and we're still friends to this day. You have people who are obviously like me, who are on there to make international connections, and then there's some people that are like always using it for like a dating app or something like that, and then I'm like, no, I'm not here for that. So be careful of that. And then I will say it's just having effective translators. I have some that I've also, another link that I have for my website, because I think Google Translate is not enough, because Google Translate's typically going to translate things literally. Like if you put words in there, you will get a literal translation of that word. So it's like, you need something that's going to give you context. Like one of my favorites is word reference, because when you type in the word that you're looking for, it'll say, it'll tell you if it's masculine or feminine, or in German case, neutral. It'll tell you what gender the word is, if it's a noun. If it's a verb, it'll show you this is different ways to say it. Like if you're trying to talk about it in this context, they would use this word. If you're talking about it in this context, it can be like a little overwhelming if you're like, oh, well, which one do I use? It just depends on the context. If you're trying to talk about this, use this word. This is how you say it. So to say. And also uses it in a sentence. It's like a full-on, like, it's amazing dictionary. And then also, if there's certain words that are not listed, they'll actually have a forum from people who actually speak the language to give you what their definition would be, so to say. So that's helpful. Good translator, so you know nuances. Also, it's great for like knowing like idiomatic phrases. They'll show you how like for us, we might say like, things like, like there's like different, like there's the different theirs. So like, it just depends on the context. They'll say, if you want to talk about distance, use this version, so to say. Effective translators. And you can also impress people when you use like certain nuances. So it's like, oh, you understand what I said, and then also I would say, learn to attach an emotion or a enhance part of your personality or something like that with the language. Like, you need to have a personal connection with the language. Don't just learn it because you're trying to learn it. There's one YouTuber that I follow that she's based in Los Angeles as well, but she has a personal connection with Italian because that was she studied abroad there, and she I think, like she says that part of her family is Italian by heritage or something like that. So you develop a personal connection to the language. When I first started learning French when I was very, very young, when you're very, very young, it kind of is already ingrained in your mind. But it's very, very important to develop a connection with the language because it just makes it more fun to learn, because you're like, wow, like I want to learn because like I have, like I have this connection. Like for me, with every language that I speak, there's this particular emotion or some part of my personality that comes out more. English is whatever because it's my native language. But with French, I feel like when I speak French, I'm very much, in a way sophisticated, but I feel like I know what I'm talking about. I know what I want. I feel like I don't know, I feel more confident in the sense of like, how like French people are very proud of their language and their culture, as they should be. It is a beautiful language, and I do love the history on their culture. So I feel like very much more like, I don't know, I feel more confident when I speak it, so to say. And then with Spanish, I feel just the same way, but I feel like more like, I don't know, it feels much more like, I wouldn't say harsher, but it feels like more expressive. Like I feel like, I'm just like, I feel like I'm just comfortable being myself, so to say. Because they're like, my friend who's from Mexico, particularly, a Spanish speaking country, is that he is, I don't know, like the way that he talks with his parents and his friends is that they're just like very much like, oh, we're just kidding around. Like I feel like I'm having fun every time I speak Spanish, it's just so to say, and then like I feel like a little bit more playful, so to say, cuando hablando en español. And then with German, I feel intelligent, even if what I'm saying is grammatically incorrect. I feel intelligent, because to be honest with you, they have a history of intelligent people coming out of Germany, to be honest with you. They have Angela Merkel, like, but yeah, so basically, like, I feel intelligent when I speak it. With Italian, I feel just as expressive as I do with, like, Spanish, but I just feel like more like I have to tell somebody my opinion, because I know, like, with my friend who is from Italy, she's not afraid to tell you how she feels about something, and it's like not like in like, I wouldn't say like a nice way, like I wouldn't say like, oh, she's like, oh yeah, like this bad thing happened to me or whatever. No, she's like, I can't believe this happened, like why are these people so stupid? It's she makes me laugh when I hear her speak, like when I hear her talking about like whatever. I feel like very expressive in a sense of like, I'm not afraid to talk about like, I have a complaint, like whatever, why is this happening and whatever, because I know that like Europeans have like a reputation for being like, they complainers, but like that's just the culture. It is what it is. It's not so much as like they hate what's going on. It's just more like, it's just a culture to talk about things you don't like. We do that in English and anywhere. Portuguese, I feel like somewhat the same way as I do with Spanish. However, I don't know if this is just me, but I feel like sometimes Russian kind of sounds like English and Portuguese. I think it's just like the accent and the way that they pronounce things, but I don't know. And then Dutch and Catalan, and then a little bit of Frisian when I speak, is that I haven't developed a connection yet because I like haven't fully like learned it. Because like with the other, like the first 6 or 7 languages, the first 6 languages, I've had much more time to develop that. But over time, you develop a connection with that. And then my other thing is, do not try to be fluent, because I think it's really funny when people are like, my goal is to be fluent in French. Cool. It's awesome that you want to do that. However, being fluent is a very vague goal. I think that the main thing you want to do is just be proficient, like enough to be able to say what you got to say. understand what you need to understand. Yeah, I think that's just too much pressure, and a lot of times people like feel that pressure and then they just quit. Kind of same thing with like, going to the gym, when they're like, I'm not seeing results and I'm working too hard and whatever, and I don't have six-pack abs, I don't have like that fluency going. It takes time. Like I said, even with me learning French for as long as I have, you really need to give yourself more time and be kind to yourself. For me, as much as I love learning languages, and sometimes like for me, I'm like, okay, I know I'm not getting it, but I'm like, okay, again, let's listen to the song again, and maybe I might be able to pick out more words in this lyric. Like, the more times you listen to things, the more you're likely to remember it more, and it takes time. So be gentle to yourself. Yeah, make small goals. Like today, I want to learn how to talk about politics or something like that. Just like small things like that. And also, one of the things I always say is, don't learn vocabulary. I mean, if you're going to learn vocabulary, like, learn how to use it. Like, I tell people all the time, I don't teach vocabulary. Like, anybody that I teach online, I do not give vocabulary, because it's like, that's just a bunch of words you don't know how to use. So it's like, if you know how to, it's great that you know how to talk about, to say all the names of the fruits, but how do you know how to talk about how you're eating? Like, how do you know how to say, I'm eating an apple? You can just say, I'm eating in poem. Like, it's just words you don't know how to use. So don't, like, and if you're gonna learn vocabulary, learn how to use it. Write sentences out, like applying it, because I think that it's useless to learn things and not know how to apply it. So learn it, and learn it as how it's used, so to say. Also, try to stop learning everything. That kind of goes with what I was talking about with being fluent, but I think that you just need, there's like a few questions that you need to really ask in this context. Is start with, what do you talk about every day? What kinds of opinions do you have on things? What do you want people to know about you? Because for me, like, I know, like, one of the things is that I learned to talk about all the different languages I speak. I'm used to talking about, like, oh, like, where are you from? America, like, yeah, it's like, oh, and then, like, yeah, I speak X, Y, and Z languages, and I talk about, like, about people, and I talk about my organization, I talk about what I do, I talk about those things. Like, learn to talk about how you, like, about how you want, based on how you want people to get to know you. If you're dating someone, what do you want them to know about you? If they ask you, tell me about yourself, how are you going to be able to describe yourself? If you love talking about politics and you have opinions on, like, let's say you want to learn about science. Like, let's say you're like, that's something that you really love, science and technology. Learn to talk about that, because it's like, well, I can talk about things I want to talk about. If you are a person that works with, like, humanitarianism, learn how to talk about how to help people. If you're a doctor, if you're in med school or something like that, because I have a friend of mine who just got out of med school, she's working on her PhD, and I'm thinking, learn how to talk about, like, what's wrong with you, like headache or something wrong with my stomach, or learning how to talk about diagnosis, especially if you're working in other countries, or with FEMA, government, things like that. Whatever you're interested in, learn that first, more than anything. Like, just learning how to just talk about what you normally would want people to know about you. So, so those are my main tips. I think that language is so important because it's like a portal to another dimension, so to say, another part of the world. Even for me, like, I'm not fluent in a lot of these languages that I speak, but I learned them because I have friends that speak it. I've been influenced by the fact that obviously it's helpful to get jobs with different languages, but it's very, very helpful when you can just be like, hey, this person only speaks Spanish. Like, I had someone, like, when I was in college, or I had just gotten out of college, and before I got my first job, I was doing Lyft, and I met so many people. Someone actually offered me a job because I spoke to them in German. He was speaking on the phone, and I was like, I think he works, like, in recycling, because he's talking about metal and iron and whatnot. And then I spoke to him, and he's like, hey, here's my card. Do you want to speak? Do you want a job? I was like, sure. I had someone in my car who would, I think he was talking to someone in French on the phone, and I spoke to her. I actually met one of my best friends actually doing that, doing Lyft. So things like that. To be honest with you, you will never know who you meet and what kind of people that you'll have in your life, because of that. So, even with traveling, it's just a whole amazing thing to be able to, like when I first started learning Spanish, because I had with living in Los Angeles, is that a lot of people speak Spanish. Like, you can throw a stone and like you can walk down the street and just hear people speaking Spanish. It's like one of those things. It's like, you know how like when people say like, oh, in America we need to speak English. It's like, well, you've never been to California before, So it's like you will typically see people speaking so many different, like speaking Spanish. And so I used to hear it and I was like, I understand like a word or two. I don't really know. I was like, I only know what Dora taught me on Dora the Explorer when I used to watch that as a kid. But when I started learning it more and more, and then I had a roommate in college, he was from Mexico, and he and I would like actually, he's one of my greatest friends and I went to go visit him like last year for Day of the Dead weekend because I was asking him questions, and I was basically, he was sharing his culture with me in his language. And that's very, very, that's like a connection I probably would not have had as close, that kind of, friendship if I wasn't, interested in learning. And then eventually, like, people around me it was just like, I saw I was walking to campus one time and I saw this mom with her daughter in a stroller. And then the baby was saying like, she's like, agua, agua. And then she said, ¿Quieres agua? Like, you want water? I was like, I understand this now. I was like, literally like 2 weeks prior to that, I was like, I would have never known what she was saying. I've had instances where I've surprised people because I know certain things, it's a portal to another world, and it's really, really exciting. So that when you go to other countries, you have such a greater experience. I mean, when I was in France, I had people who wanted to talk to me more than the people that I was with, because they're like, I don't want to speak English, so I'm talking to you. You're the one I'm doing business with. I'm telling you. It's the most amazing thing. And so sometimes people might think like, oh, it's time consuming, I don't have time, whatever. I'm just telling you, these are the ways that makes it more fun. So I'm applying it and I'm doing what I need to do. I don't really set up a whole lot of time to learn or like take online courses, so to say. I do take online courses, but I don't do that all the time, so to say. But I'm just incorporating it in my everyday life, so it's like more applicable to me. So so that's basically what I want to say. And since it's Christmas Eve, I have a surprise for you guys. I'm going to teach you Merry Christmas in all the languages. I wrote them all out for you. So, Joyeux Noël en français, Feliz Navidad en español, Frohe Weihnachten in Deutsch, Buon Natale in italiano, Feliz Natal in português, Frohe Kerstfest in Nederlands, et Bon Nadal in Catalan. So basically, I hope that this is very, very helpful for you guys. Merry Christmas for those of you who celebrate it or whatnot. Hope you guys have an amazing holidays, and Happy New Year.